Hey, well, if you're a fan of the Dead, just hearing that one chord is enough to tell you what song it is, and that itself is significant. So I want to talk a little bit about what Bob Weir is doing during parts of Wharf. On the face of it, it's a really pretty simple song. The hardest part is probably keeping track of all the different parts. What I want to talk about is basically the work that gets done around the A. This is really Weir's study in the chord of A. The opening chord, and the one I want to talk about, all that he does with it, starts with plain old A sus2. So I want to talk about sus chords and then all the different variations that Weir puts on it to really give you a sense of how he approaches voicings and all the creative ways he comes up with to make use of really simple chord progression. So let me first lay out some of the framework for that, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about suspension chords, and then show you all the different ways in which Bobby makes use of the framework that's laid out. All right, so let's turn to that. So by framework, what I really mean is Jerry's use of a Mixolydian. As we're going to see, Bobby's going to find a way to make use of every single note in the A Mixolydian, just as Jerry does when he's soloing over it. So A Mixolydian is just a modification of the A major scale, which usually goes like this, A major scale. So here's our A, our octave. Instead of G sharp, which would be the seventh of the chord, the Mixolydian simply flattens the seventh. So what we've got is A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A. Now in all the different versions that the Dead have played throughout the years, they take very different approaches. Sometimes they go very quickly through the introduction, the A sus2, and they very quickly move into the verses, which goes back and forth from the A sus2 to the E minor. Bobby and Jerry sometimes play very similar parts, which makes it difficult to hear what each one is doing. But there are a couple of versions where they really extend the introduction and they really embark on different parts, and he gives you a chance to really see what Bobby's doing. So for instance, on Dick's Picks, volume 29, there's a great version of Wharf with an extended opening. It's actually from the date of that performance is 10/11/77, I think. So that's one of the ones I want to use because it really is a chance to hear all the different moves that Bobby makes all in one song. All right, so we got that basic structure of the A Mixolydian. When Jerry goes about soloing, especially in the introductory passages, he likes to move it up here, up to this place. Now, the A Mixolydian that we just talked about, those are the same notes that are found in the D major scale. And the way you figure that out is you just ask. Mixolydian is 5 in the number of the different modes. So you ask, what major scale would have A as its 5th? Since it's A Mixolydian, what scale would give you A as the 5th? And the answer is D. So it's all the notes in the D scale, but you can really think about it just starting on the A. So we do it up here. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A. And you'll find Jerry in this version I'm talking about and other ones as well, moving up and doing some fast soloing. Now, while he's doing that, gives Bobby a chance to really develop all these different themes using the A. So that's what I want to turn to now, really make it the focus of this video. Now, suspension chords are really modifications of a major chord. So if you think about a major chord that's based off the 1, the 3, and the 5 of a scale, think about an A chord. The 1, the A, the 3, the C sharp, and the 5 being the E. then A sus2, and there are usually two versions, sus2 and sus4. Sus2 simply removes the third and substitutes in the second. So you'd have A and B and your fifth. So it'd be a 1, 2, and 5. So A, B, and E. Sus4 takes out the 3 and puts in its place the 4. And the 4 of the A major scale is a D. So there's your A with our C sharp. The D makes it A sus4. Now, one thing that's important to begin thinking about as you start thinking about playing like Bobby is beginning to look for the different places where you can give voice to that plain old A sus2. And here's a unusual place, but one you can do it. Get your A here, and you got your E here. And leave your B open and your E string, both of those open. All right, so there's an A sus2. Here's another place to get it. Now you can get your A chord all the way up at the 9th fret. How are we going to get the B in there? Well, if we fret it like this, you can get A here. So we got an A, then we got E, we got A again, and then if you fret up on the 7th fret, all right, so those are just some of the places that you can go to for the A sus2. Now what Bobby does is he essentially makes contact with, as I mentioned, all the notes in the A Mixolydian scale. Let me show you some of the different places he does that. One of the licks that's pretty standard is using so D, another way to do it, and I think it captures more the way he actually plays it, is get the same notes but just played it up higher. So you start with your E, and that's a pretty standard way he plays it. But in some versions he does that only a bit. In the version I was talking about, the 77 version, he uses this move instead. With your A sus2, he moves up and plays this little riff. Now let's just think about what's going on in those two verses. That's an A sus4, as we just talked about. How about up here? Well, if you think about the A Mixolydian that we had talked about, if you were going to continue the rest of that scale, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A. So that lick that he likes to do, sometimes again and again and again, just capturing the notes in the Mixolydian. Sometimes he alternates between where he ends on the A and then goes to E. Now notice what's going on there. Those notes, G, F sharp, then what's that one? That's our D. Then our A. Well, if we were fretting it up at the first, in the open position, what would we have? That is, he's really sketching out the notes of a D sus4. So there's our D. Here's our D note. There's the 3, F sharp. What's the 4 when you've got a D major scale? G. So when he's playing those little riffs off of the A sus2, what he's really doing is he's sketching out an A sus4 and also a D sus4. As I mentioned, the A Mixolydian is the same notes as what's found in the D major scale. So that takes this chord, this A sus2, that's got some dissonance in it, that kind of needs to be resolved, which is why it sounds right when it finally gets to the E minor. You get a sense of relief as that dissonance has been resolved. But he's taken that A sus2 and he's pushing it towards the D. That's one direction he goes. Another thing that's going on at the same time is he's pushing it towards that resolution, towards the E minor. You'll often hear fill coming in striking the E note, which is the fifth of the A. So it's part of the A chord, but it's really setting up that transition that's going to eventually lead us to the E minor. So I think that's part of what makes this song interesting, is that we've got the A sus2 with its dissonance. We got licks that are sketching out A sus4 and D sus4. Because it's in Mixolydian, it's stretching it, aiming it or moving it towards D. At the same time, it's also moving it towards E. So just within that simple progression, the A sus2 to the E minor, a lot of interesting stuff is going on musically, theory-wise. Now let's look at some of the particular ways in which Bobby elaborates and really gives literal voicings to different kinds of A chords. That's why I called it really a study in A. I'll show you some of that stuff now. All right, so we've got A sus2 there. Another move he makes is to capture the 1 and the 3 of the A. So A, C sharp, and let the B and the E ring also. But instead of strumming it all, we get this little picking pattern. So what I'm doing is striking the 4th, 3rd, 1st, 2nd. Something you'll hear him doing. Now here's another place he likes to go. Take your A shape up at the 9th, fret it, so you get your C sharp in there, then just maneuver around a little bit so that you can get that high E. So we've got C sharp, E, A, E. And it gives Bobby a chance to do some of his classic, what you'd expect, some of that high-pitched squeal, sometimes people call it, a little high-pitched or high-voiced. Comes right out of that. All right, so there's another move that he makes. He's doing that. You got this. And remember, while that's going on, in the version I was talking about, and some of the other ones as well, and we got Jerry doing and in addition to that little high-pitched voicing, you can also do it up at the 5th fret, same thing, the A and the E, which you expect to hear from Bobby. And another classic Bobby move that we're going to get is a little trill, get us to the D, just the C sharp and the D. Or you can do it up higher if you want. So notice, as I promised, every note was hit. We've got our A, we got the B being voiced in the sus2, we got the C sharp when we're voicing just the plain old A, we got the D showing up in multiple places, we got our E as part of the A chord, we got our F sharp when we're doing that little lick, we got our G as part of that little lick as well. So we're getting all the notes covered, which really makes for a nice fit between what Bobby's doing and what Jerry's doing. Now the point of all this is, all of this is simply what's packed into really just playing around with that opening segment. And there's versions of the song where they really do hang out on just the A sus2 before the song even gets going. It shows you how much you can do when you really start hunting around on the neck for the different ways of giving voice to the chords and the different versions of chords. So we've got A, we got A sus2, we got A sus4, we got some ones that I'm not even sure how to name, variations, partial chords, all the classic Bobby stuff. So something to keep in mind when you're thinking about playing, ways to go hunting for some variations to turn a simple song into something interesting. All right, hope that was of some use. Take it easy.